Blog Talk Radio.
Well, welcome to another episode of Working the Web to Win. I'm your host, Carl Weiss. With me in the studio here is Hector the Connector Cisneros.
Hey, everybody.
Today, we're going to talk about a topic. We actually call it Bringing Down the Bitcoin Bandits, but it involves a website called Silk Road. And in fact, I think this is only the second time where we've actually covered one illegal event online. Last time was the Chinese hack attack.
Right.
So it's got to be pretty serious for us to devote an entire episode to it. But this is really serious stuff.
Well, not only that, it's involved with the whole, international world currency type of thing that's going on, that's evolving on the internet now.
And the other thing is what they refer to as the dark net.
Right, the dark net, right. The darker side of the internet, which most people don't really pay much attention to. I know before we get real deep into the show, I'd like to give the callers a call-in number.
Sure, go ahead.
So for our guests online, it's 213-943-3808. That's 213-943-3808. Of course, you can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, and YouTube.
Not to mention workingtheweb.com.
And Club W Cubed and Social Slam Dunk.
We're pretty much everywhere.
When I started reading your article, it would really amaze me the gall of these people. But more importantly, how long it took them to bust this place. It took them more than a year to figure out even where the server was and what they were doing. And that's because...
It's because of this is exactly the reason they set it up this way. All right? The whole point is their actual USP, their unique selling proposition was you can do whatever you want online and nobody can trace you back to where you started from, or even who you are, what you are, or with using Bitcoin, you can't even trace
the money.
Money. You can't follow money, which is typically what law enforcement uses to crack down on illegal enterprises.
Right. They actually used the government's own router software that actually masks wherever they come from.
Yeah.
They use the pretty good encryption for emails so that you can't look at the emails. And then they use Bitcoin, which is untrackable money.
That's right.
So the whole mechanism made it so that they could easily sell crack cocaine, heroin.
Well, that was the funny
guns,
thing.
Bullets. It didn't really matter what the hell it was.
I have an actual graphic of their website, and it looks to me, everybody calls it the eBay of the underworld, but really I think it looks more like Craigslist.
Yeah.
But when you look at this thing, and it's just like right in your face, right up on top, it says drugs. So what do you want? Do you want ecstasy, opioids?
Right.
You want cannabis? They'll even sell you precursors, if you're looking to cook your own.
Right.
What's really crazy is that this website was actually going strong for 2 years.
Right.
It took the government 2 years to finally bring it to,
And people have to understand, it wasn't just drugs.
No.
Passports.
That's right.
Counterfeit
here's
products.
Another thing here. Forgery.
Yeah. Anything you wanted, pretty
Lab
much.
supplies.
And this is
what do you need?
Here's a scary thing. I read an article, I think it was in Forbes, one of them, where they're interviewing these people, and the guy says, gee, I'm really sorry for seeing that site to be gone because I was really getting used to their prices and I started to trust them. So, that's sort of crazy when you think about it.
It's kind of scary, huh?
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing that's really scary is when you look at the kid, and basically he was a kid.
Yeah, he's 29 years old.
Yeah, now he's 29. He was like 27 when he started it, you know what I mean? So, here's a kid from Texas who came up with, the idea for Silk Road. This could be the kid living next door. In fact, when they finally busted him in San Francisco at the public library, by the way, of all places, he was actually sharing a house with two other dudes.
Yeah.
And they were as blown away as anybody else about when this story hit the news.
Right, because the rent on the house was like $1,200 a month or something. He didn't go out to eat.
No, he wasn't exactly.
Very frugal
He was not
guy.
living life large,
Right.
by any means. He was definitely staying under the radar.
And considering he was making probably $20,000 a day or something like that.
That's what they estimated. Yeah, the stories that I've read online, all the news feeds are saying that he, in fact, he raked in about $60 million over the course of this enterprise.
Right.
And what was it? $4 million was still in his Bitcoin wallet,
right,
which the government seized right away.
Yeah, and again, there's only so many Bitcoins in the world. So, when I was doing my research, a lot of it I did on Bitcoin because I remember researching Bitcoin about a year ago.
Right.
Where it was this new emerging currency and it didn't rely on banks or anything like that.
Well, in my opinion, that's the reason why this type of enterprise was possible.
Right.
Because of the fact that the coin of the realm was Bitcoins, which are encrypted,
Right. Encrypted and untrackable.
They're basically it's an anonymous monetary transaction.
Yeah,
I mean, this thing was made for contraband sites, okay?
Well, the whole idea of Bitcoin, the original idea from the guy was we could come up with a currency that can't be manipulated
Right.
by banks,
Right,
governments,
speculators,
and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, on the face of it, when you look at the pluses of Bitcoin, it looks pretty cool. It's peer-to-peer. That means I'm going to send you money, you can send me money, and nobody can mess with us. I mean, there's no middleman in there.
Right, exactly.
Right? There's minimal or very low processing fees. It's open source. It can be converted to pretty much any kind of currency.
Yeah.
So when you look at all those things that are pretty cool,
Yeah.
but when you also start looking at it's untraceable, it's being used illegally a lot.
Well,
It's perfect for
like I
drug.
said, it's perfect for contraband.
Yes,
Absolutely.
any kind of contraband. But the other thing is, since it's all electronic, there's really no money there. And what I don't like about it is, if there's no such thing as a system that can't be hacked.
Right.
There's no such system that can't be gamed. And
Yeah.
several of the articles that I read in Mashable and several other places were talking about different things that had been gamed. And as a matter of fact, in October alone, $1.3 million was stolen from Input.io, which is that's not a bank, it's a repository of Bitcoins. So somebody made off with $1.3 million in Bitcoin money, which is money.
Hey, well,
Okay.
I mean, if the real banks can get hacked,
Right,
anybody can get
right.
hacked. I mean, they don't talk about it a lot, but they're regularly getting dinged.
Well, when I was reading like the New Yorker and Forbes and all, they're talking about, and these are the big money guys talking about it.
Right.
They're saying, well, that stuff can be used illegally. Well, U.S. currency is used illegally regularly. But that stuff can be hacked. Well,
Right.
banks are hacked regularly. When you look at all the drawbacks of Bitcoin,
Right.
every currency in the world has the exact same drawback.
Sure.
Except that they're not controlled by the central bank or the Fed or some Chinese government
Yeah.
or some other thing like that. So,
Well, in fact, one of the transactions that was made, which actually picked up by the feds, was there was a competitive site to Silk Road, and some dude went out and started trying to selling like assault rifles on this thing, and he was getting paid in Bitcoin.
Bitcoins.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, when I was going through there, I found by accident an article on the guy who printed the first metal gun.
Right.
Because we did an article.
Yeah, on
I
the
think about
3D
6 months
printing.
ago. The 3D printing. So
Yeah, amazing what you can do with those.
he did a 3D printing
Uh-huh.
of a 911
Right.
pistol. So
Wow.
anyway, I don't know. I think the whole thing, when you start looking at the whole Bitcoin currency thing, there are a lot of really cool articles on that subject alone. And the reason I think that's important for our listeners, because we're all about the internet, is if there's a currency that's unique to the internet,
Right.
this is it. And it was actually spawned by internet geeks
Absolutely.
for internet geeks who
Yeah.
are sort of semi-anarchists when you think about it, because they don't like banks, they don't
Yeah.
like governments and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, but you know who was their unwitting partner in crime to this whole venture?
I don't know.
The Department of Defense. Because they were basically
Right.
using the same technology
Right.
that the military uses to keep communications secret. So it's a technology called Tor,
Yeah,
the onion router.
Right, the onion router is what they use.
Right.
They also use PGP, which is pretty good protection.
Right.
and
Which is an
that-
encryption algorithm.
So that was, and again, this
Yeah.
is like a 5th generation of that, so
Yeah.
it's even way
Yeah.
harder to crack now.
But for the uninitiated, what Tor is, it's called the onion router, but it's not really one router. What it actually does is it goes out and it sets up a series of routers. In fact, when the FBI finally tracked these guys down, I mean, they had routers all over the damn planet.
Right.
And what it does is it takes the message or Bitcoin transaction or whatever, and it breaks it down into packets, and it sends these packets all over the place. And unless you have the key to receive all the packets, you can't put the message back together.
As a matter of fact, when you go to the Dread Private Roberts Twitter account,
Yeah.
there are tweets on there that say, "Here are this week's packets,"
There you go.
and you see all these big long encryption numbers
Yeah.
that people are being able to copy off of there and do whatever they're doing illegally. So
That's what it takes, Like I said, that was basically one of the selling points of Silk Road. You could put anything that you want on there, and the feds couldn't trace you.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, the way they finally busted the ring was actually using a lot of that technology against them. Because what they did, at least from what I've read, 'cause, the FBI isn't going to exactly
they're not gonna tell us what they did.
you what they did. But from what I gleaned from reading a lot of the news feeds and a lot of the blogs, is the fact that they went out and actually started to basically mirror their sites.
Yeah.
And they were getting people to place orders as though they were with the Silk Road site. And that's how they finally started to get a handle on where they were, where the servers were located, and eventually they were able to crack the system.
Well, one of the interesting things to me was this guy was starting to act like this was a regular
Oh
enterprise.
yeah, he was giving interviews for crying out loud to media. You know, I mean, that's the last thing you want to do when you're running a black market, operation, is to start giving, the regular press interviews.
But beyond that, he was also then ordering hits on people.
Yeah.
Ordering hits on the police themselves because they were.
Actually, one of the people that he ordered hit on was his administrator.
Right.
No, it was his administrator.
Right.
Because what had happened was the FBI started leaning on the operation, of course. And like I said, because these guys were not set up in, Bahrain, or they weren't set up in Rio de Janeiro. I mean, they were right here in this country. It didn't take too long for them to finally get a beat on somebody in the operation. And instead of trying to lean on Ulbricht, who is the guy, Ross Ulbricht, who is the actual quote-unquote alleged kingpin of this operation, they went to his second-in-command, his right-hand man, and kind of put the muscle on him and said, look, you can either do a, boatload of time,
you can roll on
or you can roll. And that's what happened. So, of course, Ulbricht starts hearing that, his basically the guy who has the keys to the vault is talking to the feds. And according to, the reports, he offered $80,000 to take him out.
Well, one of the things that they arrested him on was attempted murder. So.
Well, that's what it was all about. Well, they also, put a lot of things, also indicted him for drug running, money laundering, and a lot of other things. So it's going to be interesting when this thing finally, hits the courts.
I see all these major internet transactions that are going on, and again, my biggest worry is. This seems like it's perfect for contraband and rolling money and doing all kinds of stuff like that. But the reality is, a lot of bigwigs in the government and a lot of bigwigs in industry are not. They're not complaining that this stuff exists. What they're saying is, well, this is how it should be used, and this is how. Because the reality, they're going to jump on this at some point in time. And I'm going to say this on the show today. Yeah. That my prediction for 2014 is this is going to be even a bigger player next year, and by 2020, this is going to be a major thing.
The FBI is doing high fives and everything. Kudos for them actually cracking down on Silk Road. But as soon as they went dark, competitors started popping up like weeds. In fact, in my blog, I say, have they really killed the snake, or have they just turned it into a many-headed hydra?
Well, no, we know for a fact that Silk Road 2.0 is already out. I mean, it's already out. I tried to nail it down. I tried to find it where I could go in and look at every address that I keyed in, it wouldn't come up. But
you don't know the secret password.
There must be 3 or 4 dozen articles talking about the new Silk Road. So
and there are other wannabes. There are other competitors that are out there already. Like I said, the one that was talking about selling the assault rifle, that was not on Silk Road. It was on a competitor site.
Well, my warning for those people who want to be in e-commerce and they're looking at Bitcoin and so on, I would say that there's 3 things you really need to watch out for. First of all, don't put your money in Bitcoins, because again, if you can interrupt the internet, you can interrupt your Bitcoins.
Well, plus eventually the government might just decide that that's an illegal form of
currency,
currency, and then you're holding paper.
Right.
Look at the guys that were doing. Remember the online poker sites?
Right.
And they didn't shut down the online poker sites because those were all located overseas. What they did was they went in and they confiscated everybody's chips.
Yeah.
So if you had chips that were sitting in there, you went one day you had $10,000 in the kitty, next day you went in, it was gone.
And that's what I'm saying here is that
same thing could happen.
These things are in these little
right.
wallets, and again, they could disappear in the blink of an eye. As a matter of fact, there are also things that can make them disappear. I mean, natural disasters, electrical grid going down, the internet grid being attacked. I mean, there's any number of different things. I have 2 rules that I always look at when anything on the internet. The first one is, if you can't understand it, don't do it. And the second one is, never jump on the bandwagon, because leading edge is also the bleeding edge. Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 rules I always live by. If you want safety and stuff like that, go buy gold, go buy diamonds.
Yeah, now, can you explain that to the people that are working on the U.S. healthcare.gov site?
That's the other one. Again, it's a bleeding edge. You want to go and bleed a little bit, that's one of the places you can go.
Well,
I know in the article, there's a lot of links for a lot of different cool things. A couple of articles that I wanted to tell people that I thought they ought to look at. Of course, you can go to bitcoin.org and you can read it, look at their videos and so on. Mashable has a really good set of articles. that are on the subject.
Oh yeah, so I've got an article right here from Forbes. I mean, this is making the rounds.
Right,
This is
it's
big
not-
time.
Right, it's a big deal. It's the New York Times. I mean, it's in every major article. I mean, every major magazine that you can imagine that's out there. They're talking about this. I know that in England there was a big robbery for bitcoins. This is like the 12th time that bitcoins have been robbed.
Bitcoin's got bit.
Yeah, bitcoins. People got bit having bitcoins. Is what happened. So yeah, there was lots of big robberies that have been going on. And again, this one in October for $1.3 million. It's in the top 15 robberies of all times.
Wow.
That's how much money it was that they made off with. And the guy goes on the web and says, okay, on the forum and says, I have bad news for you, and puts a little frowny face. He says, we just got hit for $1.3 million. That's how he informs his clients. In a forum? I'm
That sounds like the old Richard Pryor joke when he
Right.
got a call from his broker and Richard Pryor says, well, how's my accounting? He goes, well, let me put it this way. I'm the broker and you are the brokey.
I mean, the whole idea that the stuff, and again, we have money in the bank and stuff like that. And you go online and you look at the thing, and what happens if the bank makes a mistake? I remember one time I deposited $15,000.
There's no FDIC behind Bitcoins.
Well, even if there is, I mean, I deposited a $15,000 check one time.
Yeah.
Went back to the bank the next week and they say, you don't have any money in your account? I said, what do you mean I don't have any money in your account? And if I didn't have that little piece of paper that said I deposited $15,000, it would have been okay. And how many people today make deposits? They take a picture of their check and deposit it that way and all.
Yeah.
And again, if you have no proof.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is, if your banker went under the moniker Dread Pirate Roberts, would you put that check in there?
You would seriously think about it. I know that,
Well, that would be a bad moniker because remember all the problems we had with the banks not too long ago.
Well,
I think they were all hoisting the Jolly Rogers.
Yeah. Well, they were. I mean, in reality, when you look at what they did was they went essentially bankrupt, and then the government bailed them out, and we gave them I don't know how many $1 trillion, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because now we got to pay that back.
That's right.
And the banks don't have to pay nothing.
That's right.
I mean, that's so. I understand why they're anarchist type people, and why there are a lot of people who really like this whole idea of the bitcoins and so on, because again, it removes some of these very powerful middlemen that really have a lot of people under their thumbs. One of the things I noticed when I was doing a search, you hear people say hashtag this and hashtag that. If you do a search on hashtag Silk Road, it brings up a huge number of things.
Silk Road isn't just this particular site. There were a lot of other sites that happen to use that same name.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. There's a big confusion because there's an HR site that's called Silk Road. Yeah, I mean, I'm
all
sure.
of a sudden, their site got really popular.
Right. So again, people you just have to be careful when we're out there. The Dread Pirate Roberts, which is not, it's actually Dread Pirates SR on Twitter. He has 3,256 followers, and he's only following 19 people. Now, my understanding is when the site when he was busted,
when it went dark,
somebody else took it over.
That's right. The guy that's running 2.0 took the same moniker. So the Dread Pirate Roberts.
But I want to know is how he passed in the username and password, so he could get in there and do that stuff. I want to make sure that we talk about our sponsors because we're about 20 minutes into the show. I want to thank our sponsors, Tub King and Senior Bath, and also VIE Cigarettes, who keep the lights going.
Yeah, they're e-cigs, not cigarettes.
E-cigs. That's an easier way to quit smoking, actually.
Yeah.
The way I look at it. So.
I wish I had that option when I was trying to quit smoking some years back.
And of course, Tub King and Senior Bath, who have some of the coolest bathtubs. I mean, the claw tub baths that they have are amazing. And of course, if you're a senior,
they got the walk-in.
The walk-ins are really cool, and they get the hydrotherapy.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in their little video when they explained why the door opens in instead of out, so you don't accidentally empty the bathtub all over the bathroom floor. Tidal wave.
Yeah.
Get your surfboard out there, right?
Next week, I know we're going to be talking about the
smartest guys in the room.
Smartest guys in the room.
And actually, the thing is, a lot of these things that you see online are created by some really smart guys.
Right.
And of course, we all know about the guys that are involved in not only the internet but computers, like Steve Jobs and things like that. But most people don't remember the fact that Steve Jobs got fired from Apple because after they started working with the original Apple II and things like that, his next big concept was called Next, which the next step for him was out the door.
No, he stumbled a little bit when they came out with the Lisa also.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of people jumped all over him. And
Like I said, the thing is most people don't realize that some of these guys that really hit a home run, the next time they get up to bat, they strike out. So we're going to talk about some of the things that have really been kind of cool, some of the things that are way out there, and even some of the things right now, because, Google is into a lot of different things. They have their thumb in a lot of different pies. We talked last week about the Google barge, or barges in San
Google
Francisco.
Barges, they got the Google cars that drive themselves now. They got the Google glasses.
Blimp,
Google's got his hands, and I'm waiting for Google Food.
Yeah, it's probably coming before you even
printed
know it.
food, who knows what they're doing.
Exactly, the 3D printing, you can just place your order in it, and it prints out your your favorite flavor of the day. It's going to happen, but I mean the thing is, we're going to talk about some of the things that obviously make sense, and some of the things that are just way out there. So it's going to be an interesting conversation because we're going to have a lot of ground to cover. We're going to cover not only what's happening now, but what's happened over the years in between.
Yeah, and again, for our listeners who are new to the show, on the blog, which is workingthewebtowin.blogspot.com, there's a notes page, and you can go in there and click on the notes page, and each show is listed by date, and you can find all the research that we did for the show.
Yep.
Of course, for our Club WQ members, they can go into the Dropbox and find all that information plus a whole bunch more. And I actually took a lot of the pictures that they did for Silk Road and put them in there so people could see the website. I mean, it's amazing. That website was like eBay for drugs and guns and you name it.
I know, it's crazy.
I mean, they got all these people's passports.
Right.
Get your own, forged passports, that kind of stuff.
Like I said, there was actually a listing in there that says forgeries.
I put in a whole bunch of other articles that are related that I thought you might be interested in. For example, if you believe in Bitcoin, you should never buy anything in Bitcoin. That's sort of a weird article, huh? And there's several wikis and stuff like that out there. So one of the things that I noticed is Bitcoin actually acts exactly like any other currency. Right now, it's skyrocketing up. I mean, when it first came out, it was like 50 cents or something like that, and then it went to like $2 or $3, and now it's like $20 a Bitcoin and this kind of stuff. And it's actually being affected by governmental intervention because, again, China is buying up a bunch of these Bitcoins and is driving up the price, which is the whole point was that it's not supposed to be able to be manipulated by anybody.
Yeah. Oops.
So.
In fact, they call it Bitcoin mining.
Right, yeah. And the whole mining process will blow your mind if you read this stuff. So there's several articles on Silk Road in here about the hack that happened for the $1.3 million. What was the other one?
That was a serious oops.
Now here's the other one. 745,000 pounds hacked. Why you should never store Bitcoins on the internet. Well, it's all on the internet. Where are you going to put them?
Can't put them in your pocket.
Actually, there are little Bitcoins that you can get.
Oh,
and you
really?
peel them when it's supposed to have the value in them and stuff like that. I don't know. The whole idea of the Bitcoin thing seems just a little bit strange to me.
Well, like I said, that's what the World Wide Web revolves around, right? That's why we have World Wide Weird every now and then.
I'm waiting to see somebody come out with a bartering site where you can trade chickens and all the other kind of stuff. I mean, then you just have to
there isn't one there? Google it.
I hadn't thought of that. If I had a studio on mine, I'd be Googling it right now. So, I don't have any other biggies here. Do you have any announcements for other than the next week's show?
No. I mean, basically, that's what we're looking to talk about. Is next week are like I said, some of the things that have gone big and some of the things that have flopped, and some of the next wave concepts that a lot of the your web entrepreneurs are starting to noodle around with. Because one of the ones that still blows my mind, and we've talked about this before, is the iWatch.
Yeah.
The Apple iWatch, which basically spawned an entire industry without actually hitting the street.
Right. iWatch isn't even out yet, and it's already got a Samsung competitor. And I'm waiting for them to sue Samsung because they came out with the Samsung watch first.
But they want them to make some more money first. Right. That's when they're going to get in with the lawsuits. They haven't made enough yet.
Right.
I mean, I can see it happening in the industry. You just put this idea out there, you let everybody else run with it, and then you hammer them with the lawsuit, and that's how you make your money.
Right, because they would have filed their patents first.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing. I mean, I'm sure that there's a bunch of the Japanese companies that have done that. In fact, the Japanese are renowned for filing patents for products that they have no intention of building, just so they've got the
Japanese, actually, there were several Japanese I-type watches.
Yeah.
When we did our show on the I-type watch, I remember finding a dozen of them. They were like 10 years old or something like that. They had been out for a while. And just nobody was using them because really the infrastructure was up there
Right.
to be able to make that a real viable thing.
And that's what makes the web go round.
Yeah.
You know, as you get these concepts and somebody decides to capitalize on it, but a lot of times the concepts, the guy that actually originates the concept never actually puts it into play. You know, what was the one that Elon Musk came up with recently? Was it Hyperloop?
No.
You didn't hear about Hyperloop?
Nope, I haven't seen
Okay,
that.
what the Hyperloop was, it was basically the concept for the old TV series, which was called Earth 2, where they had the underground
Right.
tunnel that would shoot the train at like hypersonic speed because it was all in a vacuum. And basically he kind of resurrected that idea. And I don't know if he put it out as a goof or as a gag or whatever, but all of a sudden people picked up on it because, well, he's Elon Musk. You know, he's the guy that sends the Dragon spacecraft into space, and you know,
Right.
he's the guy that does the Tesla car and all this stuff. So you know, if he just makes a joke, all of a sudden it starts going around the world and people took him seriously. And he's
And now
afterwards he's
somebody's
like,
outside trying
oops.
There's people out now trying to make tunnels. They
Well, yeah,
said they're trained in China.
it's going to happen. You know, all you have to have is enough notoriety. And you just sneeze and everybody says bless you. I mean, that's just the way it is today. I mean, that's the way the world is wired now.
Just want to remind our listeners out there that you can always dial into the show at 213-943-3808. It's 213-943-3808. Of course, you can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, and YouTube. WorkingTheWeb.com, ClubWCube.com, and SocialSlam.us. So,
If we're at W Squared Media Group.
W Square Media Group. Actually, we probably got 3 or 4 other ones out there too. And we got to thank our producers. What
Nashville Dave Frank.
Yep.
He's in here with us. He gets to have all the fun with this stuff after we're done because we've got about 3 cameras on this.
So,
He's not getting any sleep for a while.
so I'm going to say until next week.
Keep working the web to win.